All right, how's it going? So this is the second part of the live coding example that I was going to do at the talk I'm giving about testing in TDD. And this one is more focused on TDD, whereas the other one was more focused on refactoring, which you can do with just testing in general, and it doesn't have to be test first like TDD is more or is typically thought of. So if you look here in this cart test, we're building basically a shopping cart, and we're going to have some products, and we're going to use TDD to build all that out. So these tests are pretty simple. It's more about showing you the idea than it is about doing anything complicated, but that's how I think we can all learn and grow. So we'll get started. So I'm already in the folder. We can run the PHP unit, and we get 3 exceptions and 1 passing test. So if we look at our example here, we get app/product not found for all 3 of them, and that is because in each of these there's no product because we haven't built anything. So we're in there, so we will use artisan to generate a product class or product model, and then we will see where we go from there. Okay, so now we're saying argument 1 passed to eloquent model construct must be a type array, string is given. And I think that is because here we are passing a string and like the name of the product and the price, and we actually should be, for an eloquent model, be passing an array. So what I'm going to do though is kind of get rid of the eloquent because it doesn't really matter, and this is more to focus on TDD than it is anything. So we're going to get rid of that, and then let's see what we get. Okay, so now it's saying cart can't be found. So we're going to do the same thing, except instead of product, we're going to make cart. And I think we'll get the same. Oh, no, we're getting, okay, call to undefined method, builder add. And that's on cart test line 17. So if we look at that, line 17, we're in the cart object trying to add. So let's go ahead and open up our cart class. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of eloquent just because we know we don't need it. And so in here we will add, our add method, which should accept, I guess, the product, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So now we'll come back to PHP unit and see what our next step is. All right. Undefined property cart items. Okay, so that means we just need to define a attribute on our class. So we'll get rid of the constructor, although I think we will, or we may not need it. I don't know. We'll see. So now we run our test again and fail asserting that actual size 0 matches expected size 1. So what is happening there? So let's look back here. So we're trying to assert that the count of items in our cart is 1, but we're not getting any, and that's because cart items, I think, is still being set as an empty array, and that's because we're not actually adding the product to the items property. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll see where that gets us. Okay. All right, and we'll switch over here, and looks like that first test is actually passing now. So now in the test, cart can add 2 products and return total. There's no method defined total, so that's our next step. So we're going to come in and we're going to add our total, we'll save, and we'll see what the next step is. All right. So now it actually says there's no method remove, and then there's also a failure saying asserting that null matches expected value. So let's just simply add the next remove method and see what that gets us. Okay, so now we have 2 assertions that are failing, and we can fix that pretty easily. So the first one is cart can add 2 products and return total, and then the second one is cart can remove a product. So let's just work on the total. So basically we need to look at the items array and add that up. So how can we do that? Okay, so we're going to basically, for each of our items, and we're going to have a total equals, I guess, 0. Then we will say total plus equals item price, and then we will return the total. Let's see if that gets us what we want. Okay, there's no nothing on the product, so this is where I think we're gonna actually need a constructor, because we're passing in the name and the price, and we're gonna have to set those values in our model here. So we'll say name and price, and then we are gonna add those two properties here. And just set these real quick. And now let's see what we get here. Okay, so it looks like we're down to just the one failure. So that seems to have solved our issue with the total. So the total seems to be working now. So now remove is actually not doing anything, and we need to remove one of the past item from the cart. So what's happening exactly in that test? So we're passing one that says ball, one that's guitar, prices are there, we assert that the count's there, we add 1 and 2 here, and we're trying to remove ball and assert that the count is 1, and assert that the first item now is guitar. Okay, so basically all we need to do is remove item, or remove the ball, and then we will have, I think, what we need. So how are we going to do that? I was thinking about this, and if you actually look ahead and you read here that this is calling the first method on the cart items, that indicates that the items should be a collection. So I'm going to go ahead and add a constructor here that'll set up the items to be a collection as opposed to just a regular array, and I think that's going to help us. Alright, and basically I think we just want this to be that, and I think that might be, let's see, let's run what we have and see what we get. Okay, and that's because we haven't written this still again. So now let's just real quick see what we have in items, which is a collection. So now we can do things with that. So we could say this items reject and we're going to have to use name here in order to get access to that in our closure. And we're going to say return, oops, and then this is going to have to set items equal to that. Let's see, we're going to reject where, and this is going to pass in item. So where item name is equal to name, and let's see what we get there. Okay, boom, so that is now working. So now, since we changed this to use a collection, we can actually change our total here to be a little bit more collection based as opposed to using this loop, because ultimately what we're doing is really just summing up some stuff. So let's just say return items and sum, I think we can just say the price, and that might do it, but we'll see. Yep, okay. So now that is a much simpler than what we had here. I think saying return this items sum, and then what we're actually trying to add is a much simpler operation than all of this. and just make sure that we didn't mess anything up. Okay. So that is pretty good. I guess this still works as planned. So yeah, I think now that's pretty solid. And as you can see, our units are all passing and everything seems to be working pretty well. So that's how you can use test-driven development to drive out a implementation. But it's not always the easiest thing, and you have to kind of be aware of a lot. But it is, I think it is worth learning, and shifting your mind to think in that way is going to make you a better developer, because when you have to write a test for something, you have to think about how are you going to be able to test it. And I think that little bit there, like that little nugget of thinking about how you can test it, right? Because you want to make that easy, forces you to kind of think about where things should be and how things can be tested. And I ultimately think that that's kind of it's a shift that I don't think you're going to come across just doing development normally. I think TDD helps with that. So I'm not saying you have to do it forever, but I think forcing yourself to learn TDD and doing it for a little while is going to help you understand and write code in a better way. It just helps you think about making things testable, and thinking about that. Thinking about that is a key to writing, I think, better code. So there you go.